Hello and welcome to this Candidates Forum for Ward 6 Ward Councilor. The general municipal election will be held on Tuesday, November 7th. I'm Jen Adams, the news director of Newton News at NewTV. I will serve as the moderator today. This forum is co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Newton and NewTV. I will now read the League's vision statement on fair, respectful, and transparent elections in Newton. We envision a democracy where every person has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. To honor this vision and to protect the strength of our local democratic process, the League of Women Voters of Newton urges all residents involved in Newton's electoral process, whether as a voter, supporter, organizer, or candidate, to encourage respect for candidates and voters in all that you say and do, maintain a high level of integrity and reliability in all campaign activities, ensure that communications are relevant, truthful, and fact-based. Become educated on the issues that are important to Newton's residents. Be open to honest debate. Maintain civility as we focus on our shared interest in Newton's future. As we encourage everyone to participate in our democracy, we likewise encourage all to show one another courtesy and respect when speaking, listening, online, and otherwise engaging, especially where there may be a disagreement. And now on to our forum. The League is responsible for communicating with candidates and organizing the format, questions, and moderators. NewTV's primary role is facilitating production and dissemination of the forums. Members of the League of Women Voters of Newton may become candidates for public office. While the League encourages their members to become politically active, there are specific procedures in place to ensure the integrity of their forums and fulfill their commitment to being a nonpartisan organization that does not support or oppose any political party or candidate. Please be assured that all efforts are made to create a wall between the candidates and the League forum planning. This barrier specifically includes no access to forum questions. If you have a concern about this, please do not hesitate to contact the League at info@lwvnewton.org. In Newton, there are 2 city councilors per ward elected at large and 1 city councilor per ward elected by voters only in that ward. This forum is for 1 ward councilor seat in Ward 6, elected only by voters in Ward 6. The City Council has the power to make, amend, or repeal city ordinances, approve the city budget, approve the mayor's expenditure of funds, approve land use issues, and confirm the mayor's appointments to Newton's boards and commissions. We will begin by meeting the 2 candidates for Ward 6 Ward Council in alphabetical order. Martha Bixby has lived in Newton for 6 years and is in nonprofit leadership and political advocacy. Lisa Gordon has lived in Newton all her life and is an executive director. Let me explain the format for our forum. We will start with an opening statement from each candidate, limited to 1.5 minutes. Then we will pose questions that have been submitted prior to the forum in writing by members of the public. Questions will be addressed to both candidates and will apply to issues or qualifications for their particular office. We will use as many questions as time allows, sometimes combining similar questions, striving to cover a variety of topics. If you don't hear your particular question, it could be combined with other similar questions. Each candidate can respond to questions with a limit of 1.5 minutes, and I, as the moderator, will decide if there is a need for a rebuttal. Final closing statements will be limited to 1 minute. Now, let's go to the opening statements, which will be 1.5 minutes in duration. We will start with Martha Bixby. Martha, you have 90 seconds, please.
Hi, I'm Martha Bixby, and I'm running to be your Ward 6 City Councilor. We might already know each other from Mason Rice, the JCC, or Newton's playing fields, but I'm grateful to the League and NewTV for this opportunity to discuss the issues and opportunities facing our city and introduce myself a little more fully. Social justice and a commitment to community have woven throughout my career. After graduating from Georgetown University, I worked in international human rights advocacy for the people of Darfur, Sudan. I then worked in politics in Massachusetts and California and helped run a nonprofit that focused on supporting families as they navigated pregnancy and early childhood. When we moved to Newton, I quickly saw how much amazing stuff happens in our community, but also how hard it can be to find that information and feel a part of the community. So I started a project called Welcoming Newton, which is aimed at providing people with the resources and information they needed. But then in March 2020, everything changed. and I joined with a group of women to found Newton Neighbors Helping Neighbors, which started as a mutual aid organization to support our community during the pandemic, and now is an independent nonprofit serving our community each and every day. Through this work, I've seen the challenges residents face and also what's possible when we work together as a community. That's why I'm running for City Council, and I'm asking for your vote on November 7th to bring those voices and that perspective into our city government. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Martha. Lisa Gordon, your turn.
Sure,
90
great.
seconds.
Thank you so much, Jen. I am so excited to be here and begin a conversation with all the Newtonites who are watching about what's going on in Newton. I want to clarify a little bit. I have not spent my whole life in Newton. I did go away for college, and I lived in London for 8 years. And while I was in London, I worked on the front lines of anti-racism, organizing demonstrations, being involved with the Bangladesh youth in Tower Hamlets, and fighting for social justice. That was really my launch into adult life. When I moved back here in the early 2000s, I got immediately involved in Newton. I started, along with some other residents, an organization called Friends of Newton Center. And we worked on beautifying the village center, picking up trash, making sure things were well maintained, being involved in any local things that came up in the Newton Center area. From that, it grew. I got involved in saving the former Newton Center Public Library, which was at risk of being privatized. Most recently, I was involved with a group of students and parents. It was a great collective to try and save the Newton South High School jazz program that was being threatened. And I'm running because I care very much about 3 important things that I've noticed during my community time here. Infrastructure. I think we need to have safe and reliable roads for everybody who uses them, walks, rides, bikes. Education. I think it's incredibly important that we support our schools and our teachers. And vibrant villages. I'm very concerned about making sure that we're able to flourish in all of our business centers and that we support all business owners. I'd like your vote as well on November 7th. I'm Lisa Gordon. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And now we'll start with our first question. And Lisa, we'll start with you. Excuse me. In this election, most of our Newton City Council positions have no opponents. What should the community and civic organizations do to encourage more people to run for elected office? And how did others help you decide to run?
So Newton is such a great place, and it's definitely true that we should have way more candidates stepping up. And I believe that all elections should be contested because that's how we get the community involved and that's how we start asking questions. And I believe that consensus builds to the best decision making, you know, if you have to struggle and talk things through. I think we could do a better job of going into our high schools and talking to our students and working with them and engaging them, letting them know about the different campaigns. We've had young candidates before, and I think that that's wonderful. I think we could be looking at the people who are on the front lines, who are engaged and who are interested in things that are going on. And we should be having conversations with them, talking to them, seeing if perhaps they would be more interested in getting involved. I think that really helping people to understand what's involved in running, and it's a lot, would be wonderful. So for me, I was being the full-time caretaker for my mom at the beginning when the open seat was announced. I wasn't sure it was really the right time for me. But I had a lot of people contact me who felt that I had something worth giving. As the executive director of a food pantry, as someone who's on the front lines of working with the most neediest people in the Massachusetts Commonwealth, some of the things that are facing Newton in the future, they felt that my experience would really help that. And so I took those conversations really seriously, and I said, okay, I'll step up this time.
Great, thank you, Lisa. Martha, the same question to you. In this election, most of our Newton City Council positions have no opponents. What should the community and civic organizations do to encourage more people to run for elected office? And how did others help you decide to run?
So it's definitely remarkable how many uncontested seats we have right now. And I think that, like Lisa said, democracy is really important, especially at the local level. And it's been so exciting to me as a first-time candidate and as a mom of young children to see how excited they are and how knowledgeable they're becoming about the issues facing our city, and to talk with parents, many of whom are new to town, many of whom maybe haven't been as involved in our local issues, but seeing that it's our roads, it's the lake near your house, it's our parks and our fields. These are the things that local government can impact, and that's what we can do when we run for office. So I think there's a few things that we can do. I think that community involvement is so strong in Newton, but sometimes it feels like a big leap to move from a community organization into politics. As a first-time candidate, that was something I faced, and it does feel intimidating, but it's also so rewarding to talk to neighbors and people in our community about what impacts them and what they want to see. I also am so grateful to organizations like the League who really work to educate people and get people involved. And to the question of how people helped, I think they say, Emily's List says it takes 7 calls or more to get a woman to run. And I definitely appreciated all of those calls from friends and neighbors encouraging me to put forward my voice and my perspective and to be your candidate.
Thank you very much, Martha. On to question number 2, and Martha, we'll start with you on this one. There are many tools in a candidate's toolkit. Which ones would voters say are the most effective?
So tools for running for office?
Many tools in a candidate's toolkit
to run for office. So, I think one of the most important things is spending time door knocking. It's a chance to really talk to people where they are, and I often ask just something simple as what's on your mind. And it's incredible to hear what people are excited about in Newton, what's going really well for them, whether it's a street that was recently repaved, or they're so excited about Crystal Lake and being able to swim there in the summer, or things that are challenging for them right now. And so I think really talking to voters and meeting them where they are. We've also had so many amazing community events throughout Ward 6 over the summer and the early fall. And so participating in things like Newton Highlands Village Day, Juneteenth, we've just had the Harvest Fest in Newton Center. And so being able to talk to people when they're out and about and seeing the best of our community is incredibly important as well. So I've been grateful to spend my time doing that, and I'm grateful to those who take the time to talk to me about what's going on in your life.
Thank you, Martha. Lisa, the same question to you. There are many tools in a candidate's toolkit. Which ones would voters say are the most effective?
Oh, I definitely think it's door knocking. I think there's no better way to get out and really engage with the residents by knocking on their door. And there they are, they're in their homes, and sometimes it takes a minute and they have to think, what is it I like about Newton? What is it I don't like about Newton? But always a beautiful conversation begins. And it's one of the joyful things about running as a candidate, I think, is no matter what the outcomes are, you've met all these new neighbors. And they're all interesting, and they all have different points of view. And I find it fascinating. Some people are so engaged in Newton, and they know exactly what's going on. And then others say, I don't have any idea what's going on, but the pothole in front of my house has been here for 2 years, and it's really upsetting me. So it's a great way for me to understand the kinds of things that, as a ward councilor, I will be looking at helping when I have the opportunity to do that. I think it's one of the most important aspects of running or in a toolkit. The other thing is I put my phone number out there. It's on my leaflet. It's on all my literature. I leave a personal note whenever someone's not home, and I answer my phone. So we have the door knocking, and then I get a lot of telephone calls. I get a lot of emails. I reply to all of them. I do a lot of meet and greets at local businesses. Anyone who wants to meet with me, I make myself available. I do work full time, but I make the time to make sure that I can meet people where they're at. So those are 2 of the main points that I think are my biggest tools.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Lisa. And now, third question goes to you, Lisa. Which city council committees would you like to sit on, and why?
Okay, so I'm sure you know, and I don't know if the viewers know, but the way it works with this city council and what committee you want to sit on is there's 3 that meet on Wednesday nights, and that's programs and services, public buildings, and safety and transportation, public safety and transportation. And once you are elected, you meet with your other 2 Ward 6 councilors for us, and you talk about which committees everybody is looking to have. It's really actually up to the council president to assign you which committee you'd like. If I had my choice, the first one would be program and services, because I have spent my entire adult life working on programs on the front line of social justice, interacting with people who have desperate housing needs, who have real food needs. So I think that my skill set would lend very nicely to that committee. And then the other one would be finance. I think finance touches every resident. It's one of the most important things that we can look at, and fiscal responsibility is something that often comes up. And I, as an executive director, spend a lot of time balancing budgets, understanding about grants, making sure that everything is where it needs to be. And so I think that my skill set would also lend itself nicely to finance if I'm lucky enough to be appointed that way by the team of people who are meeting about it.
Perfect. Thank you, Lisa. Martha, the same to you. Which city council committees would you like to sit on and why?
So first I'd say that I think there's a number of ways that city councilors can make a difference and do the work that is required of them and to represent their community. One is the council committees, and one is participating in task forces. Right now I've been involved in the Safe Routes to School task force, which also has councilors serving on it. And so that's something that I would really appreciate the opportunity to continue to do also from the city council side. I think there are a number of issues that are near and dear to my heart, our parks, our open spaces, and our roads. But I think I will also agree with Lisa, and I think we have similar backgrounds in a lot of ways. The programs and services is something that really also relates to my background, and I think has so many important pieces for what our Newton government does that are the kind of thing like the Newton Free Library, where we come in every day, and that is a part of our Newton government, and that's something that we can support and really make a big part of every resident's positive experience with Newton. I also think that recently we've had some really important discussions about the finances of our city and how those finances are allocated specifically to our schools. And so talking about finance both on the council as a whole and on the finance committee would be something that would really motivate me, and I would want to bring the voices of residents, especially parents and families and our educators, into that work on the city council.
Thank you, Martha. And this question, number 4, goes to you first. How can the City Council communicate as a whole to the wider Newton community and share information in a clear and understandable way?
It's a great question, and I think something that many residents probably ask themselves. I think that there are a number of ways we can do this. I think that constantly updating and improving the city's website would be a first step so that things are super searchable and findable on there, both in terms of what's being voted on and how it's progressing. I also think that the City Council should consider doing a joint newsletter again, and that would be some way to keep residents who want to keep abreast of these different issues informed. We're very lucky now to have local news sources that are following these things and reporting on them. And so a lot of that is happening, but encouraging people to visit those news sources and find out for themselves and talking with them about what the important issues are of the day. There's also more fun things like Instagram, which is a way to communicate with people and show them what's happening in Newton and the best of Newton, and how we're talking to people. So I think there are a number of ways we can do this on all levels, and then of course in person, which is the most important one. So hosting office hours, talking to people, participating in community events. These are the things that I would do as councilor to really spend time talking to our residents, hearing from them, and explaining what's happening on the council.
Thank you. Lisa, to you. Would you like me to repeat, or do you?
I think you were saying how can we communicate
As a whole, in a clear and understandable way.
Yeah, I think it's so important. It's one of the main things that I've noticed when I'm going door knocking is that the range of what people know. There's something called the Friday packet. People don't know what the Friday packet is, and I'll tell you quite honestly, if you open that Friday packet, there's a good chance you're not going to know where to look. So I think it would be really great if we started with explaining, just maybe having a series of educational videos, or again, I'm a big proponent of meeting people where they are. So maybe it's something written, but explaining, if you're interested in local government, how you can get involved. I think when we're dealing with really big issues, like changing the zoning of our town, that we should include a mailing in our water bills so that people understand what is going on. Additionally, we could use the call service. This is a tool that is available, and we use it to tell people about garbage pickup and leaves. I think that we should use that tool to make sure that our entire community understands and knows what is going on. Sometimes we send out messages in little postcards, but they're not always, whoever's writing them is not always thinking about how someone's going to read this and understand the language that's being used. So we have to be really thoughtful about how people receive information. I would say also we could work on the city website. People didn't like the website under the Warren administration, and they were very excited to see it change under the Ruth Ann Fuller administration. Sadly, it is all PDFs, which is not best practice. It makes it very hard to find anything that you're looking for. And lastly, if I can just push in there, I think it would be great if the city website recorded how councilors vote when they're in committee and the full council, because that's really important when we're talking about transparency and accountability.
Great, thank you. Lisa, we'll start with you on this one. Do you and how would you support the appointment of a dedicated diversity, equity, and inclusion director?
So I believe that that would be an appointment that would come under the mayor. So that's the mayor's purview under her inner team. And I would respect how she wants to put her team together. I know that diversity, inclusion, and equity is an important component of our city and of our city government. But I would also respect that the mayor would be able to put her team together. The person right now who's doing a community engagement and inclusion is doing a fantastic job. And I believe that some of that falls under her purview. So I'm not sure that it's really my role as a city councilor or to advocate for a role in under the mayor's jurisdiction. And I would say that for this mayor or for any mayor that's coming, that maybe that's a conversation to be had. Why isn't this position being filled? But I would assume that currently Hattie, who is the community engagement and inclusion, is working hard on those components, and I'm not quite sure about what this new role may be. So I would defer to the mayor on how she wants her inner team to be made up.
Thank you, Lisa. Martha, would you like me to repeat the question?
I think,
okay.
Thank you. So I think these issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion are so central to who we are as Newton that we need to make sure that we are spending as much effort as we can to make sure that our community's diversity is respected, that we have equity and fairness, and that people truly feel and are included. I think there's a number of things that we can be doing as a city, and having someone whose job description, if that's in the job description, to really help coordinate and make sure these things are at the center of it might make a lot of sense. One of the things that I think we often need to see is translations on many of our city materials. We need to make sure that we have things in meeting people where they are and having things in the language that people speak and read. I also think that we need to truly work to make sure that everyone feels included in our city processes and in our city events. And that means also building infrastructure to make sure that we have accessible public spaces in all senses of the word. And finally, I think we need to really always be thinking about prioritizing the voices and perspectives of our most vulnerable residents. We have many in Newton who truly need this support and truly need to be supported and respected and part of our community. And I think that as much as we can elevate their voices and bring that into the conversation, the better we are as a community.
Thank you very much, Martha. And this next one goes to you. Question number 6. What do you think is the most important strategy that Newton can pursue to make the city affordable to live in? And how do you define affordable?
So this is an incredibly important topic, and it's something that is on everyone's minds at the moment. And I think there are a number of things that we can be doing and really looking at ourselves as part of the greater Boston area as we do this. Right now, we've got the state mandate for the MBTA Communities Act, which requires us to zone to make possible the construction of slightly more multifamily housing in areas near transit. I think that this looks at us as part of the greater Boston area and provides us with an opportunity to create some smaller units and create housing and homes near transit and near our village centers. I also think that we should be looking every time we have affordable housing to make sure that we are building units with 2 or 3 bedrooms so that they really are accessible to families. I also think that the city could be looking at creating some sort of liaison between voucher holders and landlords to create more of an opportunity and open up more dialogue and opportunities for people to apply for housing in Newton. So there's a number of things we can and should be doing, and I know this is top of everyone's mind as we look forward to Newton's future, but creating opportunities for people who want, residents who want to downsize, retirees, families just starting out, for everybody to be able to find a home in Newton, that's a top priority for me.
Thank you. Lisa?
Can I ask a question? Or?
Sure, you can ask a question.
Okay.
To Martha?
Yeah.
Sure.
So I'm just interested in the voucher program and how that would work and what it would cost the city to have a voucher program.
Oh, so I think it'd be looking at more having a liaison for Section 8 voucher holders and landlords, so that just to really explain the process and make sure that Newton is accessible for folks, and the landlords understand that this can be an opportunity for them. So not the city creating its own voucher program.
So it would be hiring a new position.
Potentially, or finding ways to do that, through maybe some of our many nonprofits or other organizations.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like to answer the question?
Yeah, the
original
question that you
question?
asked? Yeah,
Yes.
Sure. So I just want to point out that the state mandated MRT zones that the MBTA Community Act is asking us to do has nothing to do with affordability. There are no affordability requirements unless you're above 7 units. And all of these that we're zoning for are 4 to 6 units. And I think that's an important note. I really feel strongly about workforce housing, so I think that zoning to have more multifamilies is a really good idea. And we should have 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. We should have accommodations for families. I would like to see that it's an ownership opportunity and not just rentals, because I think that that can be a little bit of an issue. The rental market in Newton is almost as exorbitant as our house prices are, and it's a problem. You asked about what I consider affordable. I would really, really like to see us asking for 20% AMI, average median income, for affordable housing units. We used to do it all the time. We have Warren, we have the Weeks House, we have Castleman House. We really have an obligation, I feel, to make sure that the neediest amongst us are being housed. And many of those are people who are also getting benefits so that they can afford to be housed. So when I think of affordable housing, and it is a very complicated question, and we aren't getting it right on the federal level, we're not getting it right on the state level, and in Newton we're struggling to see how we can make that work. I think it's incredibly important that we address this. And one of the ways to do that is by partnering with nonprofit organizations so that we can look towards having 100% affordable instead of a few affordable at 80% and then $5,000 a month for 2-bedroom rent.
All right. Question number 7 goes to you first, Lisa. Traffic congestion is a common complaint in Newton, and it is a justification sometimes provided by those who oppose new housing units. How would you help us ensure that adding new housing will not increase, but rather decrease traffic congestion?
I think traffic is a big issue. And I would love to see more people taking public transportation. I would love to see us educating our young people starting in junior high about taking the T, making it accessible, allowing them to go there. Unfortunately, we are a bedroom community. I think that many of our families, even if they're living car light, are being driven around by family members or Ubers or other people. And I think we have to pay special attention to the fact that we are a community that has children, and children have activities. So I think that we can work on, as a community, having people use other modes of transportation, and I think that's really important, that we have the infrastructure for safe streets, safe roads. We do curb bump outs. I'm a big fan of the new pedestrian activated lights that we're seeing going around everywhere. I personally have advocated for a number of those. Some of them still aren't in. So I think those are important, and I think that we have to think about how our roads are used for everyone, including cars. I don't know if I personally can solve the traffic problem, but I think that we can go a long way towards making our roads safe and easier to navigate So when we're sending our children off to school, we're not worried they're going to be hit or that their bicycles are going to be knocked off the road. So I think that's something that we have to look at very seriously. I do think we also have to acknowledge that a lot of families and individuals are going to want one car. So I think we have to think about how we're going to do that and weave that into the fabric of however we move in the future.
Thank you. Martha, would you like me to repeat the question? Sure. Traffic congestion is a common complaint in Newton, and it is a justification sometimes provided by those who oppose new housing units. How would you help us ensure that adding new housing will not increase, but rather decrease traffic congestion?
So I think traffic is something we all face in many ways, and this is a really important issue for everybody's quality of life and for all of our health as well. I mean, the vehicle emissions from people stalled at red lights and traveling through our city as cut-throughs is something that's really affects us all. So I think there's a couple things we can be doing. One is creating slightly more housing near transit and near our village businesses and centers so that people have the opportunity to walk to the store, grab a cup of coffee, get their hair cut, go to the dentist nearby their home and not use a vehicle. I think we should be looking at making the roads safe for all users so that they're safe and there's not obstructions for drivers, so that bicyclists can get through and that pedestrians can use them. I unfortunately broke my arm on my bicycle this summer because I was on a road that wasn't fully paved by a utility company. And so we can and should be holding our utility companies accountable for paving the roads quickly and safely into a complete street standard. I also think that schools are something that can really be a hub. Our neighborhood schools in Newton are part of what make our community so wonderful and strong. And I've been grateful that my children have decided they wanted to bike and walk to school every day. And so we have that experience and how much joy it brings to our days, but also not adding a vehicle to the roads at that time and opening that up for the families that do need it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martha. This question number 8 goes to you first. Land use is just one governance of many in our city. What other issues or opportunities are important to you in Newton, and what skills do you bring to bear on them?
So I think having talked to residents, there are so many things that are on people's minds right now, whether it is a discussion about just having more civility in our public conversations. I think after all these years online, we need to come back to a place where we can really talk to each other about all of the things that matter to us. And there are a number of things that I've been hearing regularly from people. Concern about our parks and open spaces, whether it's Cold Spring Park, where we need to be protecting the native species, and especially the understory of the park, which is a home to so many animals and migrating birds, whether it's Crystal Lake and making sure that it's accessible and swimmable for generations to come, or it's things like looking at our roads like we were just talking about in traffic. There's so many things in front of the council and in front of our city government. Another thing I've been talking a lot with people about is protections for our trees. There's a tree ordinance right now, and I know that that's something that we've seen lawn signs popping up about, and I've been hearing from residents a lot at the doors. I think that ties into the environmentalism and concern for our planet that unites Newton residents. I've been grateful to have the endorsement of the Environmental League of Massachusetts PAC and 350 Mass Action Newton. And so that shows my commitment to our environmental issues, and that I'll bring that to the table for all Newton residents.
Thank you very much, Martha. Lisa, I'll repeat the question for you.
Thank you.
Land use is just one governance of many in our city. What other issues or opportunities are important to you in Newton, and what skills do you bring to bear on them?
So we've covered affordable housing, but that's actually something that's very important to me and that I think we can do a better job with. We have 2 food pantries in Newton, and both of them serve quite a lot of people. One is Newton exclusively, and I think that sometimes there's a misnomer that if you live in Newton that you are incredibly well off, and it's just not true. And we need to be looking at how to help house people, and we also need to be then looking at what services that we can provide so that people can flourish in Newton. I'm actually a very big supporter of the new tree ordinance, and there are some back and forths right now about where that's going to go. I believe that the tree ordinance as written by Julia Maliki and Emily Norton is a really important part of the tree ordinance. I don't think we should be exempting 1 and 2 family housing lots from the same ordinance that everyone else needs to abide by. I think that's really crucial. I live in a 2-family house, and I think it's important that my neighbors and myself keep the trees as we grow, which is, I'm in an MRT zone as well. So that means that we're looking at additional development. And we want to ensure that as we develop, we also keep the natural landscape around us. I feel very strongly about looking at Crystal Lake and protecting this natural resource. We have a bathhouse that's been severely neglected. We don't even have a boat launch anymore at Cronin's Landing. I think the plantings and what they've done at Crystal Lake is beautiful, although I want to keep the accessibility for all residents. This is a resource for all of Newton.
Thank you very much. Lisa, we'll start this next question with you. How would you encourage and improve the safety of walking and bicycling in Newton and increase the use of public transit? I guess you can expand on what you were talking about earlier.
I don't want to repeat myself. I moved to where I live because I wanted my children to grow up next to a T station. I grew up next to a T station, and I loved the freedom that afforded. And so when my kids started junior high, it was, here's your T pass, and take some friends, get used to it. You're not driving out to the Natick Mall. You're going to, get on the T. I do think we could do a much better job as an entire city for our local businesses and also for everyone who lives here if we could find a way to provide some kind of village transportation system so that people can go shopping over on Needham Street. They can go down to the shops in West Newton, go to a movie in West Newton if the cinema still exists in another year. I think we need to be more connected. And it's ironic to me that we are one, we are Newton, and yes, we have 13 different villages, but I would like to see that much more tied together. And I think that would help support our local businesses as well. I already talked about having bump outs and curb outs, making sure that people aren't speeding down the street at 1,000,000 miles an hour, which sadly I still see all the time, especially in my neighborhood. But the pedestrian activated lights have made a huge difference, especially near where I live, which is at Langley and Union Street. I used to say to people that when my kids were old enough to walk into Newton Center, which I encouraged, I wasn't so worried about stranger danger. I was much more worried they were going to get hit. And I think as a community, we could do a better job of getting people to slow down and stop at crosswalks.
Great, thank you very much, Lisa. Martha, the question to you, how would you encourage and improve the safety of walking and bicycling in Newton and increase the use of public transit?
So I think one of the most important things we can be doing as a community is recognizing we are a community, that there are children playing on the sidewalk or in people's yards, that there are children bicycling, people commuting. All road users are part of our community. And so public education campaigns to encourage people to not text and drive, to be safe, to look around them and feel like they are truly a part of their neighborhood as they navigate the roads. And I think road quality is a huge piece of this. As drivers feel frustrated by potholes and navigating unsafe road conditions, everything starts to deteriorate and safety goes down for everyone. Like I said, my children have decided that we walk or bike to school every single day. And so we see the conditions of the road and how I will say that I think protected bike infrastructure is something that can be very important, especially for road use, for bicyclist safety. But even small changes can make a difference, like reminding drivers to share the road so that what happened to us, my son fell when he was on his bike, and I looked back and he was in the road and there was no reminders to drivers to look out to share the road with cyclists, so I tried to get off my bike quickly. And I broke my arm. But I think we want to avoid that situation for all other users. I'm also a regular T and bus rider. I think the 59 bus is an incredible asset to our community that takes us up and down Walnut Street and into Needham and wherever we need to go. And so as councilor, I would use the opportunity to showcase these opportunities to get around our city and keep us all connected and moving.
Thank you very much, Martha. You both spoke about this a little bit earlier, so perhaps expand. Martha, we'll start with you. Citizens rely on the city's website for information. Many struggle to find it a helpful tool. Are you prepared to fund an overhaul of the website? Why or why not?
So I think the website has come a long way. There's a lot of information on there, and I think there are certain pathways that make a lot of sense right now. You can sort of come in asking a question. How do I find out what my trash day is? And if you follow through that sequence of questions, the flow can often really work for you. I think there are many other things if you're trying to find an ordinance or something that's been passed where it can be quite difficult to navigate. So I think there are many improvements that we can be making with the existing system of the site and with search capability that can be utilized in this day and age. I'd also really like to see more translations of many materials on the site, so I do think that that would be an important and worthwhile investment for our city government to be making.
Thank you very much, Martha. Lisa, the same to you. Are you prepared to fund an overhaul of the website? Why or why not?
So my first question would be, how much are we talking here? Are we talking $100 million, which could be used for a lot of things? Are we talking $100,000? I think it's an important question to ask when we're talking about funding anything, is that we look at what we're funding and what our long-term goals are. But if you're asking if I think that the website as it stands now is good enough or adequate, no, I don't. I think that it may be true that you can follow certain sequences through, but it's really hard to understand, am I throwing away a bulk item or am I throwing away a white item? And where do I go to the recycling center or do I not go to the recycling center? And there's just too many things to delve down into. And then if you're looking for results from meetings or things that have happened in the past, it's all done by PDFs. PDFs are very hard to search. So you end up with a whole long list of PDFs, and then you have to click into everything. It used to be by high visibility projects, and you could click through and you'd have a web page. It's even hard to get phone numbers for counselors sometimes, or phone numbers for people in the city government, because it doesn't click through the way you would expect it to based on other websites. I agree that we should absolutely have better translation services for all the varying community members that we have. They need to be able to search the website in their own language, and there's no reason not to have that. And then lastly, again, for transparency and accountability, I think it's high time that we are recording how councilors vote, both in committee and in full council meetings, so we can understand these are our values, and these are the people who I think align with my values, and make things a lot easier, and maybe make it easier to get people to contest races.
Thank you very much. Moving on to question number 11. Lisa, we'll start with you. What is Newton doing to mitigate the impact of climate change? How effective are these efforts, and what else could we be doing?
I think our current city council actually is doing a great job looking at climate change and having a plan for the city of Newton that we're working towards implementing. I do think for bigger developments, we should be looking at passive house requirements and trying to get developers, if they're going to be over a certain amount, we're looking at them to provide inclusionary zoning. And I think we should also be looking to make sure that they're building the most environmentally friendly building that they can. I think it's really important we have somebody on staff whose job it is to educate the public. I myself have done mass saves several times. We've done everything that they have asked us to do. It's maybe not realistic that every homeowner, especially in some of our old houses, are going to be able to do all of the upgrades that are recommended, but I think we should be doing our absolute best to find a path to know what it is that we can do. And so I think having that staff person has been really helpful, and it helps us to see what we could be doing differently. I love that we've brought composting in. I think that's really important. Again, I go back to the tree ordinance. I think it's really important that we protect what we have now. That's one of the, it's on the cutting edge, really, even though it's trees, for saving our planet, making sure our old growth trees are protected. So I think we need to pay attention and maybe take it more seriously, that when someone's maybe weighing up having a garden or cutting down their tree, that maybe they think twice about getting rid of that old big tree.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Martha, the question to you: what is Newton doing to mitigate the impact of climate change? How effective are these efforts, and what else could we be doing?
So again, I think Newton truly is a leader, and it's such a priority for our residents to be a leader on these issues and to protect our planet and our environment. I think some of the more innovative things and more that we have been doing are things like the Power Choice program, which allows people to opt in to higher levels of renewables just through their utility bills. I think we do need to recognize that gas leaks are a somewhat substantial part of our city's emissions. I think they make up something like 8% of our city's emissions, which means that cutting down on gas leaks and making it so that we cannot install new gas hookups in new construction, just in new construction, but in new construction would be a really important step for us to take as a city. I also am very supportive of the new school building projects that are looking at being more renewable or supporting not using natural gas or oil. Like so many of our school buildings are older and use a lot of utilities. I think as we look at preventing the increasing effects of climate change, we also need to look at what we're seeing in our city right now. And so investing and supporting our open spaces and protecting the native species that are there and combating invasive species is something that's really important as we look to mitigate the impacts of climate change over the next coming decades. And finally, I'll say back again to looking at transit, the MBTA, biking and walking, and making sure that that's safe and available to everyone.
Thank you very much, Martha. This question goes to you first. What percentages of Newton's Community Preservation Act monies do you think should be used annually for acquisition of open space, housing, historic preservation, and recreation? Please give amounts and your reasons why you favor these amounts.
So this is a really important question, and I think that the governor just introduced some new legislation yesterday looking at really how we can adaptively reuse some of our bigger buildings, our older buildings throughout the Commonwealth. So I haven't had a chance quite yet to dig into that, but I think that's an important piece to the conversation as we look at what we can be doing in Newton. I think we should be definitely increasing our affordable housing contributions from the CPA. I do also think we should be looking at preserving and protecting our open space through this. So I think that each year we can be doing perhaps looking at this and doing something slightly different. But right now, I think building and supporting affordable housing should be the top priority of anything that we're looking at through the CPA at the moment.
All right. Lisa, the same to you. What percentages of Newton's Community Preservation Act monies do you think should be used annually for acquisition of open space, housing, historic preservation, and recreation? Please give amounts and your reasons why you favor these amounts.
That's a hard one. The thing about the CPA is that it's an amazing fund, and there are so many different projects we can do with them. And we have done amazing things like the restoration of the Allen House. There's a long list. But I do think that affordable housing right now, I would really, really like to see our community who is begging for more affordable housing. I would like to see upwards of 50% going towards affordable housing is being built, and I'd like to see those be at the lowest 20% AMI. So, if I have to start thinking about percentages, I would really need to delve into what projects we've done, what percentages have gone here, what percentages have gone here, and what percentages have gone there. I have not done that work, but that would be my first, to fully answer that question. I would want to do my homework and my research. I'm someone who spends a lot of time looking at what have we done in the past, what projects have we done, and where are we going in the future. So affordable housing is definitely top of the list right now for me. I do care very deeply about our open spaces, and I think we've done a nice job with acquiring open spaces, making sure that our open spaces are taken care of. So I think that's an important component. And I think historic preservation is also really important. We've done some great jobs there with the church bell at Grace Church, which I supported. But again, I'd like to see the bulk right now for this period of time really go into affordable housing so that we can work towards having more diversity, equity, and inclusion in our community.
Great. And Lisa, we're going to start. This is the final question, so we'll start with you at this one. If elected, what steps would you take to put our city on a firmer financial footing?
I would want to delve deeply into the finances. I would have a lot of discussions with people who are on the finance committee and with other city councilors. I'd want to understand even further than I already do about why we agree or disagree on how things should be funded. And I would want to hold the mayor more accountable for some of the decisions, because she has veto, ability over whatever the city council ends up putting into each pocket. So for example, right now we have this found money. I don't, it's one-time funds, but I think it's really important that we immediately put money into the schools, because our children have been through a really hard time and they have lost a lot of the support staff that they really needed to help them get to the next level and to bring them up. So I think, as I said before, that the Finance Committee would be something that if I am able to choose a committee, I feel very strongly that our budget reflect our values. So we really need to look at how are we spending, how are we doing our street infrastructure? Why do some of these roads get done a lot faster than other roads? How can we, bring up the quality of life for all of our residents? And I think a lot of that comes back to fiscal responsibility. And so I think it's, one of those things that you have to really drill down on, and then you have to make some really difficult choices about.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Martha, the question to you: if elected, what steps would you take to put our city on a firmer financial footing?
So I think right now we've gotten a lot of different numbers and information as Newton residents about where we are as a city and what our financial footing is. So first thing I would do is really make sure that we've got a clear sense and clearly communicating with our residents what exactly that is and what it looks like. What are our projections over the next few years? What are our expenses and what are some unforeseen, potential unforeseen expenses? What are the incomes, revenue and revenue streams that we expect and that we might be able to see going forward? And I think also letting residents know how we're spending the money and on what and why. I mean, the override, the operating override didn't pass recently, but it was so interesting and useful to hear from our city government how and why they are spending the money the way they do and what they would do with the extra tax dollars. And so I think that was such an important process. I think many of the potential outcomes were not necessarily clear to residents as we discussed it. And so making sure that we know if there are cuts or if there are things that can't be funded that year, this is why and this is what we will see because of it. And so I think those are really important things that the council can be doing and our entire city government can be doing to help residents understand our financial footing and make projections for the coming years about what we can all expect from our city government.
Great. Thank you very much. Now we will be going to closing statements. Each candidate has 1 minute. And Lisa, we will start with you.
Okay, I just want to thank you, Jen, for doing a wonderful job moderating. Thank you to my opponent. It's been a great time discussing all the things that we're struggling with, trying to figure out how we would grapple with those decisions. I really believe that as your ward councilor, you are at the front line of representing all of the residents. And that means that, and I'm speaking to anyone watching, whatever your concerns are, whether it be infrastructure and roads, whether it be education, whether you don't understand the new zoning that's coming towards us, those are things that would be my job to work to make sure that you understand. I would work to be incredibly transparent in whatever my decisions are so it is not confusing. I would make sure that there is accountability there so that you know exactly how I voted, why I voted, and maybe open to a discussion on maybe, why what I did was not right. And I'm always open to listening to constituents. I feel that that's incredibly important, and then making sure that I act on that. I would love your vote on November 7th. I'm Lisa Gordon. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Martha, you have 60 seconds.
I'm so grateful for this opportunity to share this discussion and these views with you tonight and with you, Lisa. And thank you again to the League and NewTV for hosting us. I believe, as we've discussed this evening, we can make a difference on big issues when we act with our community and in our community, whether we're talking about combating climate change, creating affordable housing, or good jobs for people. These are all things that we can do together as a community. I look forward to continuing this discussion with you, whether I knock on your door or we're at a community event together over the next few weeks, so that I can hear from you about your thoughts on all of these big, important issues facing our city right now. Please reach out, please visit my website, and please let's continue talking about everything that Newton has going for it and everything we can do together. And I'd be so grateful for your vote, either early, by mail, or on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to thank both of our candidates for participating. I also want to thank NewTV and the League of Women Voters of Newton for providing this opportunity for candidates to make themselves known. And thank you to the audience for all of the questions you sent. Let me remind the audience that both these candidates are running for Ward 6 Ward Councilor. Only Newton voters in Ward 6 may vote for one of these two candidates. The polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. If you will not be able to get to the polls on November 7th, you can vote absentee or early by mail or in person. For further information, call the Newton Election Commission at 617-796-1350. If you don't know where your polling location is, you can call the Newton Election Commission or visit the city's website at newtonma.gov. On the Election Department page, you can verify your polling location. Be sure to check the Newton League's website at lwvnewton.org for more information in their online voters guide. Today's forum is a co-production of NewTV and the League of Women Voters of Newton. Any use or reuse of this program requires the approval of NewTV and the League and must be shown in its entirety without any editing, only after the program initially airs on NewTV. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that promotes informed and active participation in government. The League does not support or oppose specific candidates or political parties. It does, however, take positions and advocate for issues that it has studied. Membership in the League is open to all people. For information or contact, and more information for that is at their website at lwvnewton.org. NewTV is Newton's award-winning state-of-the-art media center, specializing in television production, training, and building community partnerships. It is Newton's primary source of locally relevant programming. Membership in NewTV is open to all Newton residents. For information, call 617-965-7200 or visit our website at newtv.org. I'm Jen Adams for the League of Women Voters and NewTV, and I thank you for watching. Participate in our elections, and remember, democracy is not a spectator sport.